Hello and welcome back to this special episode of the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey, and we are days away, depending on when you listen to this. It might be tomorrow. The Giro d'Italia, the second Grand Tour for the women of the season. It starts off with a time trial and ends with some challenging mountain stages. And for the first time in many years, Annemiek van Vleuten is not the favorite to win this race. She's passing the torch to the next winner of the pink jersey, and could it be an Italian? I wrote all about it on escapecollective.com. There you can find a piece on the contenders for the race, all the GC favorites and some of the outside favorites, a couple of sprinters who are showing up, and the young riders to watch. Plus, there's also a route preview on the site, so you'll need to know all that information for the Escape Collective fantasy game that you can play on the Escape Collective app, downloadable on the App Store. There's also information in the route preview about how to play it if you don't want to download the app, but it's super fun. I just made all of my picks for the whole race because I tend to forget to pick the day of, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. The tour is eluding me, but feeling good about the Giro. So make sure to check that out. Now, this is a really special episode. I sat down a week before the start of the Giro with Kim Cadzow, the New Zealand rider who is taking climbing by storm. She had an incredible Tour de Suisse before she crashed on the final stage. Still a good race overall. We talked about her getting into cycling, how she found it, her first year on Visma Lease a Bike or Jumbo-Visma. Last year, how the team didn't quite work for her, but now she's found home at EF Education-Oatly-Cannondale, as they are renamed before the Giro. We also talk about Lord of the Rings, so gotta throw that in there since she's from New Zealand. There's also a written piece on the site if you want to check it out, and I'm really excited that I got the chance to sit down with Kim. It was really cool to hear how the team has really taken her mental health into account before making goals for the season. Here's my conversation with Kim Cadzow of EF Education-Oatly-Cannondale, and we'll be back on Sunday to start our daily episodes of the Giro d'Italia. Voices that you will recognize, and some really great audio diaries, including Lizzie Deignan, Letizia Borghese, Grace Brown, and more. Make sure to check in. Thanks so much for listening. You've had such an incredible season and you're so new to the scene, and I just thought that people should probably get to know you better with your new contract and Tour de Suisse and all of that. I thought it would be cool to chat.
Yeah, that sounds good.
How are you feeling post Tour de Suisse? I know it didn't end how you probably wanted it to, but up until that point, it was a really incredible run.
Yeah, I think there was a shame because crashing obviously felt like the first couple of days it kind of overshadowed the first sort of 3 days that I had. But then, yeah, when I look back at it, I was really happy, and I came away with mostly just one side just lost a lot of skin as per usual, and I bruised really badly, so my bruises look a lot worse than they actually are. But other than that, I think I was back on the bike pretty much straight away, and yeah, it was all fine. I wish it had gone, I think if I'd been able to stay with that group, it would have been a nice finish, but it was still really cool.
What part of the race are you most happy about how it went? Because obviously the time trial was really good, but you also were able to stick in that group with the heavy hitters on, I think it was stage 3 in a group that's some of the best in the world, and you've not been racing for that long.
Yeah, I think stage 1 was it was a really good day for me because I was a bit nervous to get back in the peloton after a break after the Vuelta, and then I think I sort of was a bit too far back when Gaia launched her first attack on stage, and so then I got a bit distanced, and I went up and over my limit to try and ride back to Demi and Gaia, and I got really close, but I was frustrated because I was I was there but not quite, and then I sort of blew up a bit in the end, but Borghini came past me, but I was still really happy with how that ride went. And then the next day into the time trial, like I felt pretty day. And like I'd done a lot of planning with my coach Emma, and there was something about that day that was just really special because I've worked a lot with her with my time trial, and she's coached me from this year, and we just have a really, really good relationship. But I've actually never had anybody behind a bar in a radio for a time trial, and we practiced the bike changes and things. And yeah, I felt like that day was also like probably one of my favorite days just because I got to have her behind me in the car coaching me the whole way, and that was really special because we've got a relationship now. And I sort of, yeah, it was executed just the way that we talked about it and how we wanted it to go. So that was really special. But then also, as you say, like I think the next day, I also was really, really like with, because then when I was there with the girls and they actually attacked over that climb, because I was further up in the group, like I was, and then being able to go up and over the climb with them, like it gave me a sense of like knowing that I could do it, and that, you know, the day one where I got a bit distanced and tried to ride across, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not quite there yet with them. And then being able to follow it with a cool day to sort of like be like, oh, I can do it. I think there's a lot. I always sort of, you always have that doubt in your mind and never sure if you're going to be there or thereabouts. And yeah, it was a good day. And I think, yeah, I think both days were pretty exciting for me.
Yeah, I mean, like just in terms of just this year, it seems like if you have, the Vuelta where it was a great race. But if you compare it to Tour de Suisse, the two are incomparable. So how did you transition from the Vuelta into Tour de Suisse so successfully?
And yeah, after Liège, like obviously Liège was a really special and important race for me. This wasn't maybe as known as such. And then when Liège happened, like I had a lot of people like contacting me, and a lot of sort of stuff was happening around the cycling, and I found it quite like overwhelming. People were like, oh, like who is this rider a little bit. And then that was really quite a busy time, and I was also trying to do testing in the wind tunnel like straight after the race, and I didn't really get much time home after Liège, and I went to and I was actually really quite like tired at the Vuelta. I mean, last year I did something like 4 races. And I thought that was a big year, and then by the time after the Vuelta, I'd done nearly the same amount of races as I did here. And yeah, like I performed well at the Vuelta, but maybe not quite to what maybe I would. And I think it was just really important. Like I went home and I had a really good rest period and sort of got back into it, which I've not really done before, like mid-season resting. And yeah, we got into like had a good break and then into a really hard training period at this camp in Denier, and that built into Tour de Suisse, and then I had a couple days down in Girona went to the race. So yeah, it was more important like to have some rest and recovery and just switch off at home and then get back into some hard training.
So now is the Giro on next?
Yeah, the Giro's next up, so I'm using that, trying to prepare a little bit.
How do you feel about going into the Giro having had such a successful Tour de Suisse?
I'm really excited. Like I think I was a bit nervous, but because it's 8 days racing, yeah, like the Giro is really exciting for me. It's obviously some massive stages later on. Looking at those days that follow, like 2000 400 meters of climbing, and then the next day it's nearly 4,000 meters of climbing, and the day after 2,000. I think it's going to be a really big later few days, and the 8 days of stage racing is new to me, and a lot of the girls I know have done it before, but I used to think last year, like 4 days, Tour de Suisse, I was broken after last time I did it. I was so tired. Like I think I needed a rest week for the whole week. And now I've sort of adapted to be able to run. But then again, it's coming into these grand tours, which is 8 days. And I know it's not 21 like the men, but it's always full gas. And I think it's time to adapt to that many days in a row of hard work. So I'm a little bit nervous, but really excited, because I know the more I do, the better like I'll get at adapting to them, and also the more I'll learn racing, because I think that's one of my biggest things, is just races is helping me to learn.
Yeah, so I mentioned that you're pretty new to the sport, but like you're pretty new to the sport. How has that gone? Like how did you get into cycling in the first place? And then how much of a whirlwind has it been to go in basically 2 years from being a brand new rider to now being, in the GC conversation at a race like the Giro?
So I started, like, I was a swimmer for a long time, and then I met my husband, and he was a triathlete, and he was like, oh, you should try doing, I sort of just wanted to hang out with him more, so I was like, oh, I'll try do some running and biking, so I actually see him sometimes. And then I started to race. I entered a race for fun, and then I did a couple of triathlon races, but I just never really fell in love with it. I think the running was my Achilles heel. I used to be a kid, like I used to sit in the bushes at cross country, like avoid it like the plague. And so it was it was never going to be the sport for me. And then I got a bit injured running as well, so my coach at the time was like, you should enter, I liked cycling, so he's like, oh, you should enter the New Zealand nationals, like there's an age group and then there's an elite nationals. So I entered the age group nationals and did that, and like did quite well in it. And then I met my old coach Patrick Harvey, who also, his daughter's in UAE. And he was like, oh, like, what do you think about cycling, like road cycling? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know much about it, I didn't know anything about it in school, or like I didn't know this world over here. And he sort of introduced me to it. And I did a little bit of racing in New Zealand, and then he signed me to the called Torelli in the UK, and I did that year in New Zealand Elite Nationals, and I won my first under 20 TT title, and then went to Oceanias and came over to Europe for my first try. And I think like that was just insane. When I first arrived, I couldn't understand all these people were supporting the sport that I just knew nothing about, all these fans and things turning up, people who had photos of me in a Torelli suit that I'd worn once and wanted an autograph before I'd even raced in Europe. And I was like, you don't even know who I'm, like, why, what for? Where is this going? But then the more I got into it, like, more I enjoyed it, and just I think the whole atmosphere over here and the whole world around cycling is quite incredible. I think we see it a lot in New Zealand with the All Blacks, but that's what cycling is like over here for us with rugby.
Yeah, it's a totally different world over here with especially like in Belgium and the Netherlands where cycling is huge.
This is where like you've got people like betting on you and things. I didn't know like what was going on, all these like races, and there was people betting, and then you had like all these laps that you could win money, and it was chaos to me.
How are you feeling now? You've had 2 years racing in the pro peloton. 2+.
Yeah, coming up 2.5 now. So I think, yeah, my first year I did, I think 5 or 6 European races, and then I broke my collarbone, so I went back home to sort of recover from that, and then I joined Jumbo, and like that was a really hard season for me with them. It was a massive shock to the system and the World Tour races and the step up, and also organization and just different cultures. And I felt like worlds away from my family and my home, like I was actually doing it over here, but I just felt so out of my depth, which I still do now, but I think I've come into a much easier environment with EF, and they understand and have really helped me to try and learn how to cope with being away from home, maybe not being super experienced on, and given me a lot of resources and put a lot of work into helping me learn a lot more.
When you signed with Jumbo at first, what were their expectations for you, knowing that you didn't really have that much racing under your belt?
Yeah, I think I look back at it and I was really excited by the whole Jumbo, and it was like like world's best team. A lot of people say the world's best rider. Marianne was in it. She was, always my role model and still is. I love her. I think maybe they didn't look into enough the kind of rider and the lack of racing and understanding I had in the peloton itself, and yeah, it just wasn't the best fit for either. I don't think they had enough resources or time to put into me. And so I think their expectation was a higher, and they maybe thought I could do a lot more than I already could.
What was it like switching to EF? Did you have like an early season conversation about your role within the team that you're on now?
Yeah, I think coming in to the team, like I did Israel. I love Ezra to pieces, and I loved having her in Jumbo, and she left really early on into me coming into the team. And I think she always from the start as a project, and she knew she was signing me again as a project to EF. And we talked with my coach, who's the team coach, and the race directors, and just came up with a plan with really this year we want to call it, my year. I want and just really learn and absorb all the information, and just like spend the learning the skills, learning what's happening in the peloton, racing in the bunch, and of course, like also my performance, nutrition, like learning how to use altitude, all these things, and just spend the year like nothing. For them, they had no expectations on results. No, they weren't trying to put pressure on me or anything. And I think that's really worked to my benefit, and they've given me a lot of space to be able to just learn and enjoy racing my bike and understand why people for a long time. And I really just signed to the team for 1 year, because after last year I really was at the point of being like, I don't think this is something that I actually want to do. I'll give it one more try, but I can't see myself doing this for a long time. I didn't enjoy going to the races. Like, I actually enjoyed the training and not the races, whereas now it's the other way around. I really look forward to going to the races and racing my bike and being there with my team, my coaching, getting to see all the stuff. So it's really changed my mindset and actually enjoying what this job is.
So how is the team, and how are you handling now not having so much focus on race results, but having such a incredible Tour de Suisse and now going into the Giro? It would be hard not to kind of be looking at that race and thinking, okay, a result is within reach.
Yeah, I think the team, like we've spoken a bit about the upcoming race. So, they've got they're really good in, not making it a now thing. Yeah, of course, we want results. I always want to do well. I want to perform my best. I don't go to races, do a bad job. So, I think now we look at like the Giro and things, as a means to learning in 2 years' time, like being able to be super confident in being a GC rider and using the Giro like to learn how to not lose time, be more confident in the peloton. And yeah, if we can go some stages or, a higher top GC result, that would be the goal. But they're still not in the mindset. They wouldn't be super angry with me if I didn't achieve like a really good GC result, like in Tour de Suisse when I came off. Like, yeah, everybody was disappointed for me. I was disappointed myself, but no one was angry because, there's nothing you can do, and we tried to chase back as best as possible. And so I think in the Giro, they'll give me the best support they can. And I'll try and, not lose time as much as possible, but it's all still part of learning how to be maybe a GC, learning how to cope with 8 days in a row and being on the ball for 8 days in a row. You don't see people like, of course, Demi, really, really, she's the best rider in the world pretty much right now, and the best tour rider. But you look back a few years ago and she didn't know how to be a GC rider and not lose time and things, but she's learned it over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like it's obviously not just you that the team has taken this non-results based approach to, because when you see you guys win, like even early in the season with Mags and Noemi Ruig with like their early season wins, it's quite refreshing to see the team's reaction to those wins, because I think you can even see in how the riders react crossing the line and how you guys greet each other after those wins that it's not, of course it's always a goal, but it's not like the be all end all. There's not as much pressure from the team.
Yeah, I think it's really part of our culture and our team is that we know riders in the team, they can win. Like we all see each other, we all see how hard we work, and how hard we train. I believe that everybody in my team can win, and achieve a really good result. But it's not, I know that pretty much all of my teammates are always doing the best they can. So when the result comes, it's really nice. But when it doesn't come, for sure, we're a little bit disappointed, but we know that we're still all giving 100% our all. And I think being a new team and all coming in together, from different teams and different parts of the world and being really quite international, and all from different life and different ages has really helped to build this sort of community in our team where we just really appreciate each other, how we ran on and off the bike. And when the result comes, we just feel really, yeah, ecstatic for each other.
Shifting gears a bit, the Tour de France Femme, you're in a really unique position. Maybe one of the only riders in the peloton who came into the sport like pretty much after the Tour de France Femme became a thing. How different is that from maybe how your teammates view the race and kind of how the sport has changed? Do you guys talk about it much?
Yeah, I think we do. We also like, as such a pinnacle event. And I think there's a real fondness in everybody's heart for the Tour de France. And even like I still know growing up, I'd still heard of something called the Tour de France. and genuinely was really surprised when I found out, like, as I got into cycling, there wasn't maybe a women's race like for such a long time. But yeah, we do all talk about it, and we all want to be in it and part of it and race in it and know how much of a privilege it is kind of to race it.
How is it for your family if you didn't grow up like even riders who come into the sport late that I know, they still grew up watching the tour in the summers, they just didn't ride a bike. So has it been kind of a weird experience for your family also to watch you get into cycling and then discover this whole new world?
Yeah, I think I'm really fortunate to be like, I'm really close with my parents and my brother. And for them, like they were always along for the ride, whatever I was doing. They've come over every year and watched me. And I think when they came over, they're a bit like me. They just were like, what is this world over here? How does this all work? I think it was like a bit of them, and at first it was kind of like, oh, Kim's doing her thing, like, not sure how long this will last, but it's quite funny, and we all get to travel overseas and watch her race around on a bike like a mad person. And then last year, I think when they saw it a bit more in a bit more emotional light, um, yeah, they could appreciate it a lot more. And this year, I think they came over for the Tour de Suisse. And now they've grown to learn and love it just as much as I do. And when I wake up in the morning, I'll phone my parents and, yeah, oh, did you see, this rider do this yesterday, or like this person's going to this event or something? And yeah, like he's right. And it's funny, like some of my friends back home, they've also like fallen in love with the sport, and I've got one, I call them my auntie and uncle, and she'll stay up till like 2 a.m. in the morning if a really like good cycling race is on, and it's not even like any, it could be one of the men's events as well. But like, people around me have started to fall in love with cycling that know me. But yeah, my dad's always really like into it and stats focused and everything, and my mum's just always, I love her to absolute pieces, but she's just along for the ride, and she's the most refreshing person to have come over to Europe, because she couldn't care if I won or lost or anything. It's just straight after she's like, oh, and get some Swiss chocolate. That would be so nice. I have a really nice chocolate shop down the road. And, if you've had a good race or a bad race, it's the most refreshing thing if someone is completely oblivious to what else was going on.
That's amazing. So they do understand that you're currently like racing at the highest possible level, doing the biggest races in the world and like up there in the races, but they also don't in a way.
Yeah, it's a bit of both.
That's amazing. It is really cool to see like communities kind of get behind. I think it's been the same with like Veronica Ewers, for example. I know a kid randomly from the town where she grew up, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Veronica, they're obsessed with her at home." And like she doesn't know who he is. He's never met her, but like the communities where cyclists come from, if they're smaller communities, they really get into it.
That's it. And I also think like, so now it's funny, like my home, I love out that people know I'm a cyclist and that I ride a bike, but in where I'm from in New Zealand, they don't understand like what it's like over here and how, people get paid to ride their bikes. It's still, not, they don't understand that over there. So I do really enjoy going home for the summer, and I kind of become like Kim, the goofy person again. Like I'm not Kim, the cyclist that I live over here. I feel like I almost have this like alternate person, and I get to go home and just be like the little kid that everybody knew running around the back garden and like going and knocking on all the neighbors' doors and things like that. So yeah, it's quite a nice balance for sure.
Yeah, good way to reset after a season.
Yeah, that's one of my like, I that for me to have a good season, I have to go home and just like have a good period with the community and my friends and stuff around me, who of my friends from high school still think I'm like on my OE over here, which is It always gives me a laugh. You're like, oh, when you get home and get a real job.
The geography of New Zealand, right? How far away are you from Hobbiton?
Hobbiton. Okay, I'm like, so I used to live an hour away when I was growing up in Hobbiton, but now I'm living like polar opposite, like the South Island, near the bottom of the South Island, like would probably take me days to drive there.
Have you watched the Lord of the Rings movies?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm a big
Okay,
fan.
good.
I've been to the Hobbiton actually. I was so lucky because I love the movies. I've watched them way too many times, but um a family friend I know organized a birthday party for him at the Hobbiton, and they rented out the whole venue, and we got like taken around like full tour thing, and then they had the Green Dragon bar like all set up with a like big dinner in there, and we got to drink from the Green Dragon pub out of all specialized glasses and everything. So I feel like really privileged to have done that. I love the Hobbiton.
That's amazing. Of the three Lord of the Rings movies, which one is your favorite and why?
That's a hard question.
This interview has taken a turn.
Oh, that's a hard question.
It is a hard question. They're all really good.
They're all really good movies.
I can answer for me.
Yeah, you'll have to answer first. That's okay.
My favorite one is the second one.
Okay.
And I think because I like the individual storylines of the Fellowship, and I love Treebeard.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair call. Oh man, no, you've got stumped on which one I like the most. I think I'll definitely go with the first one, the
I mean, it's a
original.
classic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I think as they go on, they're still just as good. But like the first one, Mount Doom and the Land of Mordor and everything, and like yeah, I just love. I like all of them to be honest.
Extended edition or regular edition?
Regular.
Interesting. Okay. So the community that you grew up in, they maybe don't know that much about bike racing, but they know about the Olympics.
That's true.
How does it feel to be selected for the Olympics this summer?
I think it was a massive, I felt like it was a massive kind of shock for me to be selected. Like last year, I got put on the long list. And I think for me, being honest was already like, I kind of just blew my mind. Like growing up as a kid, I was always, oh, how cool it would be to compete at the Olympics. That's just insane. And then like once when I did the time trial at New Zealand Nationals and things, put my best foot forward to, look at qualifying. But then, yeah, like I think once I won the time trial and then got beaten in the road race, I was really unsure. Like I also wasn't what they were looking for when they were picking the team a little bit. And then when they sent me an email to say that I'd been selected, like, yeah, I was actually at the Vuelta and like I was in tears with one of my Swannies, Freya. She was giving me a massage, and like me and her are really close, and she knows a lot about New Zealand and things, and we were just like jumping up and down and I was crying. Yeah, it felt really unexpected, and then being able to tell my family and friends, that was also like a really big moment because everyone understands, well, most people understand what the Olympics is and how important that is worldwide. So yeah, I just feel really privileged, but also still a bit shocked, like saying it out loud when it comes out of my mouth. I'm like, am I actually going? I think I'm still like gonna have to pinch myself there.
Do you talk much with Neve Fisher Black? Because you guys are going together, but obviously you race on different teams throughout the year, but still like both of you are living over in Europe doing this thing. So have you been able to kind of touch base a bit?
Yeah, I think yeah, me and Neve get along pretty well. I've known her since being in Girona and got her more in the peloton and over here, and I see her around a lot. And I have like a lot of respect for her, and I think, done a lot for cycling in New Zealand. Already she was one of the key components, I felt like, kicking off road cycling for us. And yeah, so we get along really well. So I think we're going to have a really good time there and a really good team. I think we could do some damage. Although it's funny, on the podium, I'm not sure if there's a presentation, but this is going to look hilarious.
The height difference?
Different by size. Yeah, the height difference.
How do you guys figure out the race strategy for something like that? If you don't race together all throughout the year and then going into the Olympics, do you guys have calls with New Zealand Cycling, or do you talk between the two of you? Have you started a game plan? Is that not until you get to the Olympic Village and it's a little bit closer?
To be honest, I'm a little bit unsure of this as well. I think like we haven't obviously spoken about it yet by that reaction. We definitely will chat about it, and I think maybe more so probably at the event when everybody arrives. Also, I'm quite happy to like flicker a message or something. We're sometimes in contact, and just ask her, like, what her ideas she thinks about the race and everything, because as I say, I'm still learning, and I think she's been in it a little bit longer than me. I'm very open to some input and some plans, and I think we'll come up with a strategy that's going to work quite well.
Yeah, it's always interesting how different it is going into a race like this that has so much pressure and is like such a big deal, but is also just like a federation trying to put together as best as they can.
It's kind of like, when you look at it, it's even more so than World. It's the most random event of like the way that cycling's run in as a pinnacle event. You've got 60 rides in a bunch, double that plus over in a normal European race, and then you've only got like some teams have got one person, and then other teams have got four, and riders that have never even worked or spent the whole year like trying to beat each other and together in a team. It's such a weird combination of trying to make it's nothing like any other sports. You've got swimmers who are against each other all year, and they know like how the race is probably going to unfold and their main competitors and things. And we know our main competitors, but like, it's not like maybe rugby or something where you've spent the time in a team, like as a team, and then you go to the event and understand each other and have been with each other for years, whereas we just event for the first time together and have to try and see how it's going to work.
Oh yeah, when you put it like that, definitely makes it a little bit more interesting. But all right, well, thank you so much for chatting, and good luck at the Giro.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. It was nice to speak to you.